Take. I'm your host, AJ Kierstead. NewEnglandTake.com to join the Substack. Please be sure to check that out. I have a brand new article that I published last week. I was off for the show, but I was still busy. I wrote a little over 2,000 words diving into the situation with the Concord Monitor, and I think they've got some journalistic issues that you should consider. It's been picked up by the Granite Grok and a couple other outlets, and I'm appreciative of everyone that did that. So be sure to check out that article at NewEnglandTake.com. It's also a great place to support the show. Big thank you to WKXL for picking up the program Saturdays, 8:30 a.m., as well as the GraniteGrok.com, and Concord TV also picks up the program. This week, we are sponsored by PorcupineCoffeeRoasting.com. Use code NETAKE for 15% off your order. Is a private membership organization with locally roasted specialty coffee right here in the Granite State. PorcupineCoffeeRoasting.com. Once again, use code NETAKE. All right, excited this week to be joined by two guests. So we are going to be talking about New Hampshire Forum, nhforum.us, if you want to learn about what they're up to. Full disclosure, I was hired by them to photograph their last local event that they held that was in Nashua a couple weeks ago. It was really interesting, and I said it'd be great to actually do an episode on it. So I was really excited that one of the independent state director, Lisa Nash, for connecting me with former New Hampshire State Rep Kevin Smith, who is a Republican, and former New Hampshire State Senator Donna Soucy, who's a Democrat. Welcome both for the show.
Thanks for having us on, AJ.
So I don't know who wants to take this to do the elevator pitch, but when people want to learn what NH Forum is, what's the basis of it?
Donna does a much better job at the elevator pitch. I tend to travel on for a little bit. So, Donna, I'll let you kick it off.
Basically, it's an opportunity for citizens to come together, citizens of all persuasions, to come together and talk about the issues that they think matter most and that the legislature should be working on. And we provide many ways for citizens to engage. They can do so either online, attending a community conversation, casting votes on the issues they believe in, most of all. And we're going to have the culmination of this process in September, where we'll have a community forum where everyone will come together. A group will debate the key issues that have been identified and come up with one or two pieces of legislation that citizens will then advocate for before the legislature.
And this is, like I've talked about this ad nauseum on the program, but I always hear the nonpartisan, and it dissuades me from caring about many organizations in the state, because you know what they're doing. There's a purpose behind what many of these alleged nonpartisan organizations. That just essentially means they are not formally affiliated with a political organization. But what's super unique about this, and especially when you go to your website, nhforum.us, you literally have three co-state directors from different political persuasions that all work together for this. How does that work? How do you get these people that allegedly we can't talk to the other side? It's the other side's evil. How do you get them actually into a room, and what sort of chaos ensues?
Well, AJ, I guess I would start by saying when I was first approached to take part in this endeavor, the first question I asked is, all right, so what's the agenda, and how it being funded? Because I was trying to dig into those same things you were just saying. Is this really nonpartisan, and is it really just going to be organic, where whatever issues come out from all of the different online strategies or online polling and community conversations we're having? And I realized that it was, so that was one thing that was very attractive about the organization to me. And the other thing was the people that are involved with it. And when they told me that Donna was going to be the co-chair on the Democratic side, I was very excited about that because Donna and I have worked together in the past. Maybe not worked together is the right word, but we've been on opposite sides of the table in various matters when I was town manager, and always had a great working relationship with Donna. While we don't obviously agree on every issue, she's someone that is easy to find common ground with. easy to work with, and respectfully debate different issues. And so it's really being led from the top down in a sense of setting the tone for how we want these conversations to happen, but it's the bottom up from the people that are setting the agenda. And so it truly is nonpartisan, it truly is organic, and really citizen led.
Don, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I would just say that, having served in the legislature for a long time, I can tell you that there are a lot of issues that are really not partisan issues. They're the issues like housing, like affordability, like healthcare, that people talk about. Now, parts of that, sure, they can take on a partisan bent, but for the most part, they're issues that people talk about getting their coffee in the morning or having a beer after work. And for the most part, there is common ground on all of those issues if you're willing to sit and listen. And I think that's
Yeah.
what the forum is trying to state is that, I'm a Democrat. I always say I was born a Democrat because my parents were and will continue to be. And Kevin's right. There are some issues we'll never agree on, but we're both good people that just want to see problems solved here in New Hampshire and want to move the needle. And this is an important way to do it and to engage people that don't like some of the tone they hear in public debates, don't like some of the ugly things they see on social media and, tend to shy away. This is a way to engage in a positive and respectful manner and to, as I said, hopefully advance a couple pieces of legislation this year that everybody really agrees on.
Yeah, definitely. So before we dive into, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to, and AJ, I think one other thing I would mention is, you had said there at the beginning about, the two sides supposedly not talking to one another or not, that they shouldn't talk to one another. And I think that's a big part of the problem of why we are where we are as a country is because we've been talking past one another, or avoiding one another, rather than having these thoughtful, meaningful discussions with one another, because we are all in this together. And we've got to find the solutions together. And when you become too tribal, that's when things really break down and where nothing gets done, because each side has dug their heels in and don't want to find where the commonalities are and where maybe that 70% consensus is.
And that's a good transition to talk about your community conversations that you put on. It was fascinating to see how that was structured. Kevin, you're serving as the MC at the one I was at, directing the conversation. Why don't you dive into what's the format? How does it work? Where you facilitate these conversations, and then what happens at the end of that these conversations?
Yeah, so again, the conversations are with people who signed up for them, who wanted to be there and talk about the issues. We tried getting a good mix and balance of people across the political spectrum. It isn't always the case because again, it's driven by whoever it is that signs up for it, right? That being said, we try to put people together who maybe have different ideas and are coming at these issues from a different perspective politically, and facilitating questions about the top topics that Granite Staters seem to be most concerned about. In this case, it was housing affordability, property taxes, education funding, and energy costs. And facilitating questions that get people to talk about what the problems are, what potential solutions are, and where can we find common ground and consensus on how to tackle these issues. And what comes out of it is, from the feedback I've heard from people who have attended, is they're like, wow, I learned some new things, but also I realized that we can find common ground on these issues. And the thing is that I go back to when I was town manager. I used to have to negotiate union contracts. And the biggest thing about negotiating a contract is there's give and take. You're never going to get everything you want, but you're going to get some stuff. And that same goes for the other side. Where talks break down is when both sides say, we're not giving an inch. We're not going to give an inch. Well, then you should stop talking at that point, but nothing productive in the end gets done there. And so it's finding those areas where you can come to agreement and say, you know what, this isn't perfect and it's not everything I wanted, but it's not what, everything the other person wanted either. But we found enough common ground to say we can actually move forward on this issue by implementing these policies.
Yeah, we've, as a society in the United States, have forgotten what the legislative process is supposed to be. This is a great, it seems like a great analogy to how that system's supposed to work, where you do have that back and forth. You are supposed to create laws. You're not always going to be the party in power, and you're going to have to figure it out. Donna, throw it over to you. I mean, what we can, if you want, we can dive into some specific topics, but I mean, how is that played out? Are you finding that these groups have very mixed individuals? I mean, I was at the Nashua one. I was actually surprised how many Republicans you managed to get. That's beside the point. How did that play out for these individuals? Does it tend to be a lot of back and forth, or does it tend to be there's a few louder voices in these small groups that are kind of making the determination? Like, how does that work?
Well, the way it works is people come into the discussion, to the forum, and can sit wherever they want. And then we do some icebreakers, like, chocolate ice cream versus vanilla, walk with your feet, right? Vote with your feet. So people get to take a side or sometimes stand in the middle, and sort of see where they land on different issues. From there, we then assign people to tables based on their political bent and based on the issues that they identified as the ones they most wanted to engage on. And that's where we get the mix, and that's where things start to get really interesting, because we also have norms at the table. So you have to listen. You have to have somebody who takes notes and who record, but we also record the conversations because we want all of the information that people are talking about. We want to distill all of it because all of it is important. I saw a lot of times in the legislature where sometimes very good ideas ended up falling by the wayside because of, who the bill sponsor was, or because they got attached to something that was more controversial and things got put aside. But there are so many issues, as I said, where if we're all just people, like we can sit and talk and say, okay, 75% of us agree this is a good idea. Let's move forward. Or, 70% of what we've talked about makes sense. The other 30, a little more controversy there. Let's hold on that, but let's move things forward. And that's really what we're trying to do, I think, is to get rid of that log jam where, you have one side staring down the other. Everyday life isn't like that. And it's what people want to see their leaders do. And we're hoping that by engaging at such a granular level, engaging citizenry in it, that they will then act as a citizen lobby and give people sort of the protection isn't the right word, but give them the impetus to say, this is really what people want. I'm going to vote for this, or I'm going to advocate for this in the legislature because I have 70% of my constituents standing behind me, Democrats and Republicans, saying this is a good idea, and independents too. So
I'd like to ask both of you the same question. We'll start with Kevin, then we'll go to Donna. I mean, what is a surprising moment during these community conversations for you, either the online or the in-person? Either people were like, oh, we agree on one of these subjects that this is like a great solution we should consider, or maybe something that just didn't work out. Because I got the feeling with, you're getting a lot of people in the room, and so it's the anecdotes seem like they'd be really important on this.
One of the things that was most interesting to me, and this happened a lot at the Concord Forum, once the activities were over, people stayed and continued talking to people that were at their table that they came in, not necessarily agreeing with. And it was a continued dialogue, and people, what you're saying is actually interesting. Now that I understand where you're coming from now, I know a little bit more about why you hold these beliefs, or why you don't, agree this is a good way to go. It was amazing. They really wanted to keep engaging, even after having been there for a couple hours and spending their time. So those relationships being forged, I think, is really good and really healthy, and it's a good sign for all of us.
Kevin?
No, I agree. I agree. Yeah, to Donna's point, it wasn't like the event was over and everyone just went back to their sides and went home. There were quite a few conversations afterwards, and I heard people saying, hey, it was great getting to meet you. Let's exchange emails, let's stay in touch. And that's what you want to get out of it. That's what you want to hear at the end of these community conversations. And it's those of, of things that are going out that we're in right now as a country.
These are a great civics lesson and reintroduction of basic civics. It seems like there's been
Right.
this culturally, this don't talk about politics at all because things have been so crazy. I think the nature of discourse with Obama and Trump first term, going into COVID, everyone's like all up in arms about the subjects that matter to them, and kind of the people feel desperation when it comes to the like property taxes and education taxes here in the state of New Hampshire specifically, where it must be it must be revealing to, or kind of, I would imagine it'd be kind of relieving to say, oh, I don't need to necessarily keep everything in my head. I can talk to my neighbor about these sorts of things again.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's very true. And again, when you're away from those partisan bubbles, or you're away from just your social media and what the algorithms are showing you, you find out that even if you and your neighbor have different party letters next to their names, uh, you actually there's quite a bit you can probably still find to agree on. And when it's an atmosphere, when it's more relaxed, when it's inviting that, right? When you're inviting those conversations in and saying, no, we want you to talk to one another. We want you to find common ground. That's refreshing compared to what we have right now. I always say if you look at the founding documents, whether it be the Declaration or the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, people think, oh, there was broad agreement on what the amendment should be, or what the Bill of Rights should be, from the outset. Oh my gosh, if there wasn't compromise, these documents would never even seen the light of day, because there was a lot of compromise that had to be made, and again, not everybody got what they wanted in them initially, but they had to find some common ground because they all believed, well, we still got to move forward here. Having an imperfect document, it should not be the enemy of, the perfect, if you will. And that's I think what we're facing today.
So, Donna, can you talk a bit about the state convention? How is it determined which of these topics are going to progress to the state convention, and how are the people selected that will be participating in that conversation?
So first on the issue side, so when the forum first started, anyone anywhere in New Hampshire could log on to the site and just put their ideas forward. And there were thousands of them that we received on our online platform. Those got distilled down to 16 key topics, and people could cast up to 6 votes, prioritizing what they thought were most important. So we've distilled it down to 4 that we bring with us to the community conversations. And this citizen assembly that will be convening. Will There's also, oh, I should also say, we do have a legislative advisory group and a civic advisory group to sort of say, okay, yes, housing, here's, some of the things that have already been considered. Here's why they may or may not have made it forward. Let's, figure out how to better refine that information. So when we have our citizen assembly that will take place at the end of September, they will be the ones to determine if there are one or two pieces of legislation that go forward. And they will use the information that we've gathered through the various sources, various activities, and also some outside validators that we've asked to look at these issues, energy, housing, property taxes, and education. And, there is obviously some overlap there. I mean, education is paid for with property taxes, housing, is very expensive. People are concerned about the driving costs. So there is sort of a nexus with all of these issues, but the citizens themselves will whittle down all of the ideas and then come together, we believe, 70 to 75% of them will come together to make the determination what will move forward. Right now, there is a lottery. If you log on to our website and you're interested in participating in that citizen assembly, you can register for the lottery. We're also going out into the communities to make sure that we do have true balance. Because one of the things that we don't want, I mean, with the conversations, as Kevin said, whoever signs up goes. When we get down to brass tacks and really refine that last issue, we want to make sure that we are getting inputs from people of all political persuasions. So, super conservative, super liberal, in the middle, identify as Democrat, identify as Republican, identify as independent. We want to make sure we have very, very disparate voices when we get to that stage. So in addition to people expressing interest and doing some outreach, we are going to make sure that that final group is well balanced.
Interesting. So how do they take in so this final crew that gets to have the conversation, how do they get to take in that feedback that's happened through these other conversations? Obviously it's kind of helped guide which are the final topics that are brought up, but do they get like a report or something that they read through and listen to?
Yeah, all of the information that we have gathered, both through input into the website, through the community conversations, all of the conversations are recorded, and we're actually using AI in part to help distill that information. And then in addition, that's why we also include outside validators to review that, just to make sure that, for accuracy, we are citing the right things. But they will receive a briefing around the issues, the final couple issues that we've identified, and then we will have some experts on hand as well of different persuasions that will be able to answer questions to further refine the legislation. But it will be the citizens driving the agenda, and they will have some homework in between. It's a 3-day exercise, starts on Friday evening, all day Saturday, and into Sunday. But we look forward to them really digging in and, really having some good back and forth to determine how we can move 1 to 2 important issues forward.
That's great. Yeah, and something you can't make up policy over I love my 30-minute format here, but you ain't determining a policy that's going to be a law within that sort of time. So that's great to actually, people might say, oh my gosh, it's that long. It takes a long time to honestly talk through a subject. And I get a question for you. Do these advisors also help kind of make sure to tell them, like, hey, it's not constitutional to do this or that necessarily if they go off the rails?
Yeah, I mean, I think there will be some inputs there if something is really far-fetched. But I mean, for the most part, everything that we've heard is, either in line with things that were already introduced in the legislature that may not have made it, or are things that really should be considered and advance, whether it's education, energy, property taxes, or housing issues.
Kevin, do you have something else on that?
No, Donna covered that well. I would just maybe add that I appreciate the fact that you pointed out that 30 minutes is not enough time for a true policy debate, and that it takes a long period of time, and that's why this assembly is over 3 days, because there's a lot of nuances. One of the things that always drives me crazy about debates is you're given these massive topics, and they're like, okay, you got 2 minutes, tell us everything, and it's like, you can't tackle this in 2 minutes. And so all you get are sound bites. Um, in this case, we're really digging into these issues, really figuring out what the nuances are, and having thoughtful discussion around all of it.
That's great. nhforum.us if anyone wants to learn more about the lottery and things of that nature. I would like, we got a couple minutes left here. Kevin, and throw it to you for this. It'd be great for people to be aware of you brought it up at the beginning. What is the funding model? How is this able to be financially as a process?
Yeah, so our founder of the forum, and it's in 3 states right now: New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina. His name is Andrew Shue. Some people may remember him as a television actor back in the 90s. If you meet him, he won't even talk about that. He's been more of a social entrepreneur, he calls himself, and really trying to enhance civic engagement. That's been his thing. And so he and some private partners and friends of his, they're the funding sources behind it. There's none of these big national groups, whether on the right or the left. It's just he and some friends have put initial seed money behind it because they believe in the effort. They want to show that it works. And this is how people can re-engage in the process to move the states forward with solutions to complex issues, and to get people of different parties talking to one another again.
And super brief, what sort of input do they have as this process has progressed?
The funders?
Yeah.
I'm not sure they have any input because I've never heard from any of them. And I'm sure Donna probably hasn't either. I mean, obviously we talked to Andrew, but Andrew's more of an onlooker, and he's just watching behind the scenes and seeing how everything plays out. So, which has been really nice. And actually, if you look in all the different states, all the issues are different, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Awesome. This has been a fantastic conversation. It's been really great to hear more in depth about what New Hampshire Forum is up to. nhforum.us. Former New Hampshire State Rep Kevin Smith, the Republican, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure.
And former New Hampshire State Senator Donna Soucy on the Democrat side, thank you also for joining the show today.
Thanks, AJ. It's fun.
All right, newenglandtake.com to get more from the show. Be sure to sign up over there. You can sign up for free, get every episode in your inbox. If you want to throw me a couple bucks, that's a great way to do it too, to keep the show on the air. Big thank you to Porcupine Coffee Roasting also for supporting the program. Be sure to check out my article on the Concord Monitor. There's a lot of work, but I think there's some important subject matter with regards to making sure Concord residents are informed of things that are happening in our area. Thank you to WKXL for picking up the program. Saturdays, 8:30 a.m. in Concord and Manchester on the radio airwaves. GraniteGrock.com as well as Concord TV also picking up the program. Big thank you to them. Give a little bit of a signal boost. And be sure to follow all these platforms. These are independent platforms, and it's important to support independent media in 2026. I've been AJ Kiersa with the New England Take. We'll talk to you soon.